Hey guys, and welcome back to Lucien TV. In today's video I'm going to explain you the differences between a used bike and a new bike. So I know that a lot of you out there are questioning whether they should get a new bike or a second-hand bike. So today I want to clarify which one's better, what I prefer, and what the pros and cons of both categories are. So also a big thank you goes out to Motorex for sending us those hats and a few other goodies. With Motorex you can make every bike last a bit longer. Okay, so let's go through the pros and cons of both categories. So for a new bike, obviously the pros are it's completely new, all the parts have no scratches, it's shiny, it's new, it feels good, it's simply nice. Also the parts and the bike itself have a longer life expectation because they haven't been ridden yet, they are fully new. Also, oftentimes you get warranty with new bikes. With second-hand bikes you often don't. So normally the warranty goes for about 2 years. So you don't need to worry about this. And also you know where you have it from. For example, if you buy the bike from a bike shop, then if you have a problem you can ask for help, you can ask for advice, and it's going to be fine. Now the cons are obviously it's going to be a bit more expensive, that's for sure, and also in those crazy times with the COVID-19 pandemic, new bikes can take a long time to actually get to you. So some bikes only arrive about 1 year after you order them. That's crazy. Okay, and then second-hand or used bikes. So the pros are for sure it's going to be a bit less expensive. And then also it can be personal. So if you buy it off someone you know, maybe a family member, a friend, someone you just trust, and sometimes even your favorite racer, this happens as well, the bike can be something personal and maybe it has a bit of history behind it. Also, second-hand bikes are often more accessible, especially in those times, and there's a wide variety of bikes you can choose from on various second-hand markets. Also, if you're into a bit older models and standards, those are accessible as well, because bike manufacturers tend to, for example, not make 26-inch bikes anymore. If you really want to have a 26-inch bike, often on the second-hand market you'll find what you want to. Okay, and now to the cons. Obviously all the parts will have a lower life expectation because they've already been used and ridden and also crashed. There are going to be scratches in pretty much every case, so they just don't look as nice. Maybe some stuff is fine but not perfect. That happens. Also, the worst thing you can have with second-hand bikes is unhonest sellers. So people that don't tell you what the problems with the bike are and tell you it's fine, and then it turns out it's not. So yeah, that's a big problem with second-hand bikes. Also, with second-hand bikes, what I learned is that you need to have a bit more knowledge and expertise when it comes to buying a second-hand bike, because at the point where you're going to get the bike from a person, you'll have to decide in 5 or 10 minutes whether the bike is fine or if there are any things wrong with the bike. So for a beginner this can be really hard. If you really know what you are looking for, then this can be not so much of a problem. Also, often when you're getting a second-hand bike you need to drive somewhere to get it from someone's place, and this costs fuel and for sure also your time. And then what I found with second-hand bikes, you need to work on them a bit more. So first of all you need the tools, you need the time, and it's going to cost quite a lot of frustration as well. Okay, so now let's have a closer look to those two bikes. Those are Matteo's and my downhill bikes. We bought them in Valbella Lenzerheide, Heights, so the Bike Kingdom, off a bike shop, and they were second-hand. So we got a great deal on them in the first place, but there was quite some things wrong with the bikes, and I'm quickly gonna talk you through it. So around here there should be a list now what broke and what the things costed. So let's go on my bike first. I'm going to tell you the most important things. So I had a broken derailleur, which costed quite a lot. The crankset actually broke, and also the pedals. And just all of the bolts, and many of them were rounded out, so you can't really work on this bike anymore. Yeah, and I had to pay 500 bucks on top of the price that I paid in the first place just for replacement parts over those 2 years of usage. Now let's step on to this bike, and there should be a list again what broke on here. The most significant being the shock blew up and had to get pretty much replaced. There were 2 or 3 broken derailleurs, endless spokes, and yeah, also brake rotors and this stuff. This bike costed us 750 bucks on top of the original price we paid for it, so quite a lot. In total, or in average, this means 625 bucks a bike, and this is quite a lot. So I also spent endless hours working on those 2 bikes, so that's pretty unpleasant. Okay, and now on to a very good second-hand bike. This is the Rocky Mountain Thunderbolt. It was once Ursus from the bike lane shop, and then it was mine, and now it's Matteo's. So this was actually a great deal. He gave us a really good price, and in total this bike has now been ridden for almost 3 years, and the only thing I had to change was the chain. The brake rotors had to be replaced, and I had to change bearings down there because they had play in them. So that's everything I had to do on this bike. There's nothing broken, all the bolts are still fine. I know this is a nice bike in the first place already, and a bit nicer than the downhill bikes obviously, but that was a really nice deal, and that just shows that if you can trust the seller of the second-hand bike, and you know the person, and you're confident that everything is fine with the bike, then second-hand can be a really good deal. And now we step on to the new bike. Actually, the bike is now almost 1.5 years old. It's my dad's e-bike. I ride it a lot personally because I really like it. And that's our comparison bike as a new bike. So over those 1.5 years, I had to replace the chain, which is absolutely normal for an e-bike. And what was not so good was in a crash, I broke a brake rotor. That's my fault, and also the whole back brake had a leak and had to be replaced. It costed 100 bucks and a bit of work, but other than that, everything is still fine with this bike. So yeah, that just shows that problems like we have them on these 2 bikes just occur after a few more years of usage. So this is still a very good bike, and it was new from the beginning on. Okay, and like this, we're already into the conclusions. So my personal opinion is I prefer a new bike just because it's shiny from the beginning on. It's more pleasant to work on because I like working on the bikes, and stuff just holds up a bit better. Also, when you get a new bike, the first few rides are just something different. It's such a nice feeling, and you don't get this with second-hand bikes. With second-hand bikes, there's often just one little problem, but it gets into your head, and it's just stressful to think about all of this. And with a new bike, this just occurs a bit later. With a new bike, you invest a bit more at one point, but as we could see on the downhill bikes, we invested less at the first point, but over time we had to replace many more parts, and it costed us at the end maybe a bit less, but still the difference is not huge. So second-hand bikes also have their good points, because you don't need to invest all of this money at one point in time. It just adds up over time. It hurts a bit less. Also with second-hand bikes, at the end of the day, I think you pay a bit less. And also, as we saw with the Thunderbolt from Ors, you can get really great deals on second-hand bikes, and you get super good bikes just for a lower price. But we need to say that also a new bike after a certain time it gets used, and then it's just at the same point as a second-hand bike. A really good tip I can give you, and we did this with the e-bike of my dad, is at the end of the season when the new bikes are already released for the next year, they put a huge discount on the bikes of this year. The bikes are still completely new, but you get about 25% off. So that's a great deal and a good idea if you want to check these out. For sure, these offers are limited. Also, sometimes they sell you bikes from shows that were just standing in showrooms. They're completely fine, they're not ridden or anything, but they're just a bit cheaper. So yeah, I hope I could help you a bit with this decision, what would be your next bike. If you have any questions maybe regarding a specific bike or comparison between different models, then don't hesitate to write them down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer every single one of them. Yeah, that's it for the video, and see you in the next one.